Alright, well, it's time for me to do something that pretty much anyone into video games, especially Pokemon, has done already. Give a nice little thought dump or a set of opinions about Pokemon X and Y, 6th generation of games. And to do so, just gonna take apart every single little possible thing that I can think of. Some things will be things I've seen before, others are things that I haven't yet, but definitely want to make a point of, either building off of ideas or just something that hasn't happened. I don't know. And obviously this is going to end up being substantially longer than the trailer was, so you can definitely squeeze minutes, or I've seen even hours of content out of a minute and a half long trailer. Not even. I don't know. Alright, so something right from the beginning, which some things here are going to be very speculative, some are just minor speculation that have a bit more grounds, but we'll get to that. So first off, we have our good buddy Pikachu, who's speaking to us, and is very excited, Pikachu type of thing, telling us about all the exciting news that he's got to spread over the world. And this is basically pre-any game content, but something interesting to note here is that this could be basically following up on the Dream World in a way, going back to Generation 3 and I believe the Moss Deep facilities, where they mentioned basically researching two things. One is a device for the sake of reproducing the dreams of Pokemon, and another one for communicating with them. And if the way I remember it is that the one for communicating wasn't as far along as the one for dream reproduction, but we got the dream one last generation, so maybe now we are going to do some sort of other thing that communicates with them. I don't really know much of what this could entail, but it could make use of the 3DS microphone. I mean, the DS already had one, but the 3DS microphone maybe, so you can, instead of, clicking on Tyranitar use Earthquake in, fight or whatever, maybe you could just say use Earthquake and see if that works as a way to communicate. Just an idea, something they could do. It would probably be pretty weird to be doing this if you're playing it on the bus ride to school and you're kind of yelling at your Pokemon, but if you're playing at home or with friends or something, it could be entertaining. So moving on from that, something that everyone has already said, so not much more to go on this, but Pikachu's on top of the Eiffel Tower, shoots thunder all over the place, and it spreads across the world. So everyone knows about it at the same time. Why we're getting that global release. Another thing to note about that, though, is that's pretty much going to be something they're going to have to live up to from this point onwards with whatever they're doing. Then the trailer starts, and we have the male player character looking into a mirror. It rotates around, and right before it cuts to the next scene, you can see what looks like a sort of closet or dresser or whatever you want to call it to the side of him, which between the mirror and that storage whatever gives support to the idea that we are going to get character customization. That in mind, there's another point a little bit later on in the trailer, which you can see here, of how the male character swinging on that rope in a route or maybe a gym puzzle leaves his sunglasses behind. This is most likely a glitch. It could be like some sort of little interesting something where they just kind of as they're gone, they fall, comedic sort of thing. Probably not, though. Probably this is a sort of proof that it's not part of the full, the base character model for the male character. Instead, the sunglasses are an add-on that they had in pretty much every scene. But because they're not part of the character itself, they were able to be left behind, and he was the only one who got the swinging animation. Again, more speculative thinking, but it's something to give basis for that idea beyond just, oh hey, it's a mirror, he's looking at it. We can see now that he is running on Route 3, and it's just 3, not, 23, 53, 683, whatever. Just 3 on that sign. So, another support for the idea of it being on a new continent, as the numbers reset also for the Unova region, as opposed to Hoenn and Johto and Sinnoh, which were all different regions but within the same sort of country or continent or whatever the proper ideology there is. And again, there's also the background tower and the building style, which I don't know personally, but people are saying that that's representative of like a European style. I haven't seen that firsthand, but something I'd like to do, and it certainly seems likely. There's also the roller skates the male character is using as he's gliding, which, or rolling, sort of a swift movement. So this leads to some questions as to, is this going to replace the bicycle? Is it going to be an addition to it? Another point to note here, not that it necessarily means anything, but anytime the player characters appeared, they, aside from the roller skates, they were running. This kind of follows in from the 3D games Colosseum and XD, where as long as you had the control stick in a full tilt, the characters Wes and Michael were always running, not terribly quickly, but you couldn't do anything much about it. They certainly weren't moving or like animated in a way that was walking. So this could be the case for the characters here, as this style is very much like that with the 3D, as well as the way the camera looks a lot of the time. It doesn't necessarily need to be the case, but it could be, and the skates could be. Perhaps the next speed setting in the bike is one further than that. It would certainly make the case of why you finally need special shoes for running, because there's really no reason for that in any of the other games, and of course we've all made fun of that at some point. Now we get to our starter Pokemon, Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie. Very interesting lot, and certainly some people are like, these are god-awful things, that they're all repeating ideas and it's terrible, and other people are like, I love these, they're awesome. So, I personally like them. I think pretty good designs. Fennekin as the Fire Fox is a bit repetitive of Vulpix, but they're still based on different animals ultimately, specifically since Vulpix is a bit more of there's more like a mythos behind it, as opposed to Fennekin, which is based on a Fennec fox. These things aren't really terribly important, but there are more things to look at what they give us. So, again, things that have been said before is that all of the starters use 2 moves. Chespin used what most likely the Solar Beam. Obviously, we still don't really know what the animations are, but that seemed extremely likely. Use Solar Beam, beat the crap out of the Magikarp, and then it used what seems to be like a Night Slash. Another being up a Golurk, kind of going all over the place. We can't really be certain. It could just as easily be a Ghost type move. It could be something like Shadow Claw, for example, which would also be a good move on a Golurk. It would do damage. Basically, the only thing we would know for 100% certainty is that it's not a fighting move, a normal move, or an electric move, because they would do no damage to it. So, that the dark secondary typing is pretty much a very strong idea at this point, but we still have no certainty for it. Same thing goes with Fennekin using a flamethrower or something first, and then like a pinkish purple move, which would seem to be a psychic type move, using Curlia, and obviously not the greatest choice if it is, because it's not going to do much damage. Well, if it's Psywave, in which case type doesn't matter. Sorry. Again, there's a lot of things that can be done with this, so we don't really have much of an idea. And again, it doesn't really matter much for typing, because, for example, the Typhlosion can learn extrasensory through a move tutor. It's obviously not psychic type, it's just pure fire, so it doesn't really mean much. One thing is that I'm sure Game Freak will be attacked if we have another firefighting, so for their sake, as well as the sake of our sanity, we can hope that's not. A fox certainly doesn't seem like it would become one, but you never know. And there's Froakie. Froakie is one of the more interesting ones here, because it doesn't even seem to follow the first one to begin with. What would seem to be more like a water gun type move, when looked at closely, seems less likely to be that. Because when you look at it closely, you can see what seems to resemble like ice crystals or snowflakes coming out of the beam. While at his mouth it can look like splashes, the beam itself seems to be covered more in like crystals. So doesn't have to mean that he's going to be water ice type. Obviously, a lot of water types that aren't Magikarp can learn ice type moves. I mean, aside from like Magikarp and a few others, but so it can just easily be a water type that can use Ice Beam. No big deal. The other one is a move that we really are very speculative about. It has no real like color indication. Moving very rapidly, so it could be quick attack. It could be like trying to beat the crap out of that Patrat. So it could be like a close combat, or like maybe like submission, or there's a whole variety of moves it could be. One other thing to make a point of, though, that a lot of people, myself included, do feel that Froakie bears some resemblance to Benjamin Franklin. It has like the sort of whitish hair mane around it, as well as like the two little circles that look like glasses. Building off this idea is how its eyes are very like large and luminous, sort of like light bulbs. With these ideas in mind, it could be a water electric type in the end, being us our first electric type starter since Pokemon Yellow, whether you're the player character or the rival. Speculative idea again, but it's something to consider. This certainly could support quick attack, because electric types being generally fast. Weird ideas, but whatever. We have this other thing here where you're running around with what seems to be a partner or a stalker, but we'll assume it's a partner, which will mean that we'll have our wild double battles again. This girl also seems to be holding a camera, so she might be looking to take a picture of a wild Pokemon or something else in the forest. The other thing with the camera is that it might be a feature of the 3DS that could be used. Iwata did mention that the 3DS features will come into play during X and Y. This could take any number of things, and the 3D visuals are not the only thing that we get out of the 3DS. You don't even have to turn them on. A lot of people don't like this idea, say, oh, the 3D gives me a headache or something. You don't have to have it, but you can still make use of it. Other things too are the stereoscopic back cameras, the front-facing camera. There's the accelerometer. There's the gyroscopic sensor. The street pass and spot pass. There's a variety of things that it can use. Not sure what we can do. One thing that might come into play with the gyroscope and the accelerometer are in what appears to be a gym in the trailer, where it's got like this crazy curved maze-looking thing in the background before the gym like reconstructs and assembles itself, and someone is next to the female player character. Really not much to, just kind of a crazy thing that we saw for all of like 1.5 seconds, but it's there. We've also got our wild Pikachu that appears, and the Golurk and Palpitoad statue in the background. So certainly are a lot of old Pokemon returning in a variety of ways. They were apparent in the battles, but that could take any variety of forms, even though like post-game stuff. But considering how prevalent it is, and how they're really insisting on it, we know that we're probably going to get a lot more of it than we did in Black and White. Probably going to be in the region decks, any number of things. Other thing they've mentioned is how there's going to be over 700 new Pokemon now, or not over 700 total Pokemon, over 700 new Pokemon would be quite excessive. Over 700 total Pokemon as a result of this, which means bare minimum 52 new ones, which would be small for a region, given the small time span, since they done a lot of big things lately. This, could be just a result of, trying to do a lot of things quickly. But it's not necessarily the case. It could easily be over 100, maybe we'll even break the 800 national dex mark. Nothing's really certain. But one of the things to think about with this is that we could also get DLC Pokemon. And this would go beyond the event Pokemon that exist already within the data, but instead we could get perhaps placeholder Pokemon that have no real data set in the game yet, but you can then download them and get all that content in there. And you have now the space for it with a 3DS because of the memory card slot as well, another feature that will be used. Again, spitballing ideas, no particular basis for these, just something to do, something to think about, something to discuss with your friends, your family, your classmates while you're not really paying attention to your math lecture, whatever floats your boat. Lastly, we have our two legendaries, Yveltal and Xerneas, or Y and X respectively. Don't see it too much in the English trailer, English logo, but there is a resemblance between the legendaries and the Y and the X. There's also in the Japanese logo, I keep saying trailer, Japanese logo, the DNA symbol, which is rainbow colored, much like the half-ish of Xerneas' antlers. So DNA, X and Y chromosomes, things like that are most likely going to come into play. One of the things I'm thinking this might mean is more things to do with origins of things, with DNA and the chromosomes. But this is from like a biological standpoint. Arceus gave us the creation of the world, and then Dialga, like time and Palkia space, and the otherworld with Giratina, and then we had 5th gen with the with like the yin, the yang, good and evil, and the dragon splitting the region. Even Groudon Kyogre kind of creating the landmass. There's a lot of origin thing, but nothing from much of a biological standpoint. Mew is the ancestor of all Pokemon, but we don't really have much of that. So that's something for us to look at. That's really all I have for now, but anyone feel free to leave comments or ideas, messages, whatever. And with that, we'll see you next time.